Welcome once again to Off the Shelf Books on Tour. I'm in my own element. I've got a historically correct, true story, embellished with love, by a young lady who found letters of the Civil War in her attic. Go for it. You tell the story so much better than I do. It's Ellen.
Yes, hi. Well, this is amazing. I know it's kind of like going along my regular life. I was a teacher. I was taking care of my 3 children on a tennis team, and all of a sudden one day my daughter asked me if she could find, if I had a picture of myself from when I was a baby, because she was doing a school project, and you know, it's not something you usually have in your house. So
Yeah,
well, I mean, you probably have your kids, but do you have one of yourself when you were a baby?
No, I'm 42. They didn't have film. It's
Oh,
hard to
okay.
come by.
Well, then there we go.
Yeah.
So I called my mother and I said, do you have the family albums? And by the way, they had moved out of New England. So I thought this was going to be tricky. So she said, well, you're in luck. When we moved out, we didn't have room. Apparently my mother's not that sentimental, because she left all the albums in my house because I have room in our attic. So it was along with her Life magazines and, you know, all that stuff that people, and thank goodness I didn't recycle it. But so I was going through the boxes and I found the albums, I found the picture that I needed. And then I came across this old leather box, and it was, you know, dusty, and I had no idea what it was. And I didn't have time to even really look into it, but something about this box made me just want to take it downstairs.
It says hello.
It did. It said hello, and you know, it just looked out of place. It's so small, and I'd never seen it before. My parents had never mentioned it, so I brought it downstairs. And you know, 2 weeks later, I didn't even have time to look at it until about 2 weeks later. I opened it up, and the first letter that I pulled out said, you know, it was an old letter that I actually have, "My dearest Ellen." And I'm like, wait a minute, that's my name. So, you know, it's just really, I think that made me even delve in further. And then as I was reading the letters, I noticed that the husband was writing back from the Civil War to his wife, Ellen, and their 3 children, 2 older boys and a much younger daughter. And wouldn't you know it, I have 2 older boys and a much younger daughter. So it was so serendipitous. There was just things going on that, you know, it really was. And, you know, I didn't even know, you know, much about our heritage or anything, but it turns out that this is my great-great-grandfather. He was an Irish immigrant, and his name was Florence Burke. And he had just an extraordinary life once I really started to research. And actually, I ended up dropping everything I was doing after the school year, and I was obsessed by finding out the story and the backstory and why he went to war, even at 35 years old, when he wasn't fighting for his own country. He was fighting for his adopted country, when he had a wife that he loved and 3 children at home. But boy, did I learn about the hardships of the Irish immigrants when they first got here.
And in doing that, didn't you learn that they didn't teach you everything in school?
No, especially about the draft law.
Yeah.
And about so many different things about the Civil War. Plus, even when I was teaching, you know, as I was saying, it's like you always talk the North and the South and that battle, and the, you know, commanders of Lee and Grant, and just the different years and battles. But I never knew about one person, and all the different insider stories you can get.
And the people that made it up. Yeah?
Especially the Irish and a lot of other immigrant groups, and you know, black people. It was just amazing. That
I said indentured servitude last week in a group of people, and a 75-year-old woman said, "What does that mean?"
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
you know, it's this, and that's what I learned, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. You did an excellent,
thank you
excellent
very
job.
much.
Irish, you know, but it's so true to form. I had the pleasure of doing Angela's Ashes before he won the Pulitzer.
Wow.
And I would say that you are running a second,
That is so nice.
close.
You know, I would have loved to have met him so much.
Oh,
and
he was very
you know,
pleasant, very real.
You're so lucky. You know, and it's just the fact that, boy, Irish stories are really sad. I mean, here, my great-grandfather he survived the Potato Famine. He fled in 1848, so he had endured it for 3 years with his family. Somehow they survived. And I used a fictional town it's a real town, but thought I used the place because when I was researching, I couldn't find it. But when I discovered from the Irish Cultural Center, that when they helped me do the genealogy after I wrote the book, I didn't even know about the Irish Cultural Center before this, but boy, do they know their stuff, and they do free genealogy, that he had, he was from Skibbereen, the Skibbereen area. That place got wiped out by the famine. So it's just amazing that he was able to get out when he did. And the fact that he could survive the trip over, which was, they're already, the people getting on the ships are racked with famine and disease and hunger. And they get on this boat and they're in the steerage, the lowest part of it's amazing that they could even survive. They called them the coffin ships because so many people didn't make it to Canada or to Philadelphia or to Boston or New York, wherever they were trying to get out.
And emotionally, his family just about disowned him for leaving.
Yes, that was, tough. I knew that his family had stayed behind, but somehow they did survive, which is amazing. And I believe it was because they had a cattle farm, and so they diversified from the potato. Because if it was just the potato, there's no chance. And they didn't get somehow evicted by their absentee landlord in England. So.
Now, you write it as if you were there, but you were here.
Right.
And the majority of it is here. And you're going to go to Ireland?
I am going to Ireland, I believe. I hope. I've been invited at the end of August because they're doing a big famine exhibit in Dublin. And Florence Burke's story is being made, or it's already up in an exhibit with other famine survivors, because they're just trying to tell the story of people who actually were able to survive and what happened to them after. And unfortunately for him, he came to America, had a tough time, just because there was, the Irish weren't treated so well there, and he was very poor, and the only thing he really knew how to do was farm. So he went to New York City, but didn't last too long because it was very rough, and went to West Springfield to follow his love, Ellen, and then, was a tenant farmer again. So joining the Civil War, I believe that he thought it was his last chance for, to help raise his family out of poverty, and also get a little respect in the town, and to have the American dream, which is owning land.
And he really didn't have much time to set it up.
No.
And the farm that he got was no castle on the hill.
No, I think it was an abandoned plot of land that really nobody wanted. He didn't really even get to see it.
No road.
No road to the main town. So his wife is left with a baby and 2 kids that has to bushwhack to town and, get that land started. So the kids were taken out of school, to help with the planting. Luckily, there was a lot of wonderful neighbors that really, came together and helped this Irish family. And then poor Ellen didn't really even have the deed to the land. So the draft law is that my great-great-grandfather was able to, he went to war for a wealthy man who was drafted. He wasn't drafted himself.
A lot of people don't know that and don't understand.
It's called the draft law. I didn't even know it before. My father had explained that to me, is that he didn't go to war because he was drafted. He went to war in place of a wealthy man, because back then it was okay.
You could do it.
You could do it. Abraham Lincoln needed people. He needed bodies down there. So he enacted a law that said that if you were wealthy enough, you could pay someone else to go to war for you. So a man in their town gave my great-great-grandfather money to go in a plot of land to use towards his land.
But he didn't have the deed until he was done.
Right, until he was pretty much, he was kind of I think he was done. But yeah, so the poor Ellen was trying to be the one. He said, you need to go and take a lawyer and go to the town hall and get this deed done so that it will be, and imagine this, in 1864, a woman, an Irish immigrant woman, trying to go to town hall and fight for her rights. It was not easy. And so as you know, it took like 9 months for her to actually get. But boy, did she was not going to give up, because this is what he was fighting for. And he was putting his life on the line for. He was gambling his life for a better life for his family. So that's what my book's really about.
But he didn't know it.
He did.
He didn't know it, and unfortunately, well, I'll leave it up to you to find out whether he gets to come home.
Well, that's what I always say, like, did his gamble pay off? And I think that's the main central part of my book, is if his gamble going to war for his family paid off. And that's what I think is the most intriguing part of my book. And I have the letters that I used in the book, his letters back to Ellen, and I wrote it in the first person, because, especially when he went to war, because I wanted the reader to know what it was like for a woman and her, wife and the kids to be waiting for these letters that didn't come very often. They were intermittent minute, you know, he was, and her letters couldn't find him because he was always on the march, and sometimes they stopped the letters. And so, and I wanted Ellen and the family to only hear from Florence through his letters because they were so compelling that I could use their 95% verbatim from what he wrote. I just had to add a little bit to make sure that they, you know.
Did the Irish Cultural Center ask you if they could copy them?
Yes, and so have other places, New York University, a couple other places have wanted them. I know that I'm going to donate them at some place, I think probably Boston College, because my sister went there and they have a wonderful library that I know would be used for other kids to, but right now I just found them 4 years ago, so, and it took me a year to research, a year to write, and a year to rewrite with an editor. So
did you publish it yourself?
It is independent publisher, so a person in Atlanta helped me get it into book form, and but I'm doing all the promotions pretty much solo.
And how exciting was it when the box came and you opened it up and you said, did you get to choose the cover?
Yes, I did. Well, you know, because when you independent publish, you can do a lot of things on your own, and you own all the rights and, you know, everything. So, yes, this is actually a letter, a real
From
authentic
the collection,
letter.
good.
And this is actually my great-great-grandfather, his tintype picture, and their baby. So it's pretty cool that I had all these primary sources to use.
It adds such validity and makes it so much more real. And like I told you earlier, I'm giving it to my grandchildren to take home. One has just come back from D.C. and touring the Capitol, and she's all kinds of questions and answers, and the little one is going to Gettysburg next year. So I think it will be more meaningful if they read the book before they go.
Right. I mean, my dream for the book is to get it into education, because that's what I was into before anyway. My father's a headmaster of a prep school, so it's to get it into, you know, the schools, middle or high school, and to read it right along with your textbook. Because to have a first, and I know historical fiction is, you know, the Red Badge of Courage has always been read. And
Corduroy Road.
Yep. So I just think that right along with that, to have a book that is about a real person who was actually there, and to read his words, and the fact that he's writing to his wife and kids, you know, so he had such a warm heart, and he was there for such a different reason. You know, everyone has a motivation for going to war, but boy, his motivation was so pure, and it was just to help his family.
And I think they retain a story as against the text.
Right. And it's a little bit, sometimes if you're not into the text or for the, you know, actually it can make it just more meaningful and more, you know, just it really can, right, telling a story and reading about a family is a little different than just reading in a textbook.
Has it set you on fire? Are you going to go find another relative to write about it?
Well, I do have a World War II grandfather that I could do, but no, I think, you know, it's funny that this was so serious, and the tone was so, you know, a certain time period, and I had to do so much research. And did I tell you that when I was in Ireland, the reason I thought I could actually do historical fiction when I was traveling around trying to do the research on him was that I just, by luck, rode through this cute little town. I didn't even know where I was, of course, no really street signs.
Wrong side of the road, wrong side of the
right,
car.
Tiny, tiny little narrow roads, but the views were just these little plots of land with rocks around them, and you know, I just said, this could be my town. So when I finally found the town center, which only contained a pub and a church and a newsagent, I went into the newsagent and said, do you have a map, because I'm trying to do a little history and I can't see any street signs? And they said, no, but you just missed the local historian. I said, what?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. They said, don't worry, at 3 o'clock he usually comes by every day to get a newspaper. I said, we'll be back.
So
we went to
I'll buy the paper.
Right, we went to Cove, where the port was, where they went to America, and then I came back and there he was waiting for me. And so when I go back to Ireland, if I go in August too to see the, I'm going to go back to Ballinhassig and meet at the same pub that I met him, and we were going to invite the town and sign some books and whatever, so it should be a really fun time.
Nice.
But he literally, he wasn't like, oh, another person is over from America trying to find their roots. Not at all. He sat down with me. He told me about the effects of the famine on his village. When I was writing the drafts, and he doesn't have email, so I had to send it to him, hard copy, snail mail. and it was snail mail. And then he would write in the margins, you know, what would have been said in, because I wasn't in the 19th century in Ireland, but I could never think of writing a historical fiction without being completely accurate. So to have him being able to, you know, go for it and tell me if they wouldn't have worn that thing, or if they wouldn't have said this, or wouldn't have eaten this.
That he was able to.
That's when I knew, I think I can do historical fiction, which is my favorite genre, and which, because I told you I couldn't find all the information, I could add a little, you know, pizzazz.
Well, you did.
Thanks.
And you did a good job, and I would be anxious to read the next one. Have you written anything before this one?
No, just, you know, little writing pieces, but nothing. I'm telling you, I didn't know I could even really get to this.
You didn't know there was a book in there.
Except when you get inspired, you can do anything, I realized. It really just takes, boom, something to hit you on the head, and these letters and, you know, the story, and I really wanted to honor them too, because, as you know, reading it, they didn't have much honor in their life. They didn't have much even, it was very tragic. As you were saying, like Angela's Ashes, a lot of Irish stories are very tragic. So I thought, wow, I'm going to bring these people, even if people read about their story, their name's getting out there, and, you know, there will be a little bit of honor there.
But in reading someone else's story, you can pick up little dibs and dabs of what your grandparents said, which you didn't understand at the time.
Right.
Which you were probably 14 or 15 years old, and you didn't give a hoot.
Right. No, I didn't. I didn't even care about my Irish ancestry at all. I know, isn't that terrible?
Blasphemy.
And I have red hair, and it's real too. Yeah. So no, it's all these things, but suddenly, you know, I'm a little older now, and finding this, I was obsessed by the story about figuring out
And
why.
how did your family feel about it?
You know, my parents, I just said, why on earth did you never share this with us? And my two sisters, you know, that we had this treasure. And my father said, you know, I knew it was very important, and I always wanted to keep it safe. So we didn't want to open it. We didn't. So that was kind of their mindset, more than, oh, let's, you know, bring them out, and, you know, which is good. That when I was having them, went down to an archival place, they said it's almost good that nobody for 150 years really opened it or took these out, and because some of them are written in pencil, and some are pen. It's whatever he had available to him, you know, and the
You're
letters
really
go back.
glad that you're very, very lucky to survive.
Right, and that I found it, and it didn't get recycled in the box of old Reader's Digest. So I feel to have a window into the past and to open up this whole, you know, finding my genealogy has meant so much to me. And I really wanted my children to understand, and this is how I originally thought this was going to start. I'm just going to write a quick thing so they understand and appreciate the struggles of the first generation Irish immigrant, because we're so lucky, and it wasn't easy for the first people of any immigrant group that comes over. And well, at least, you know, the Irish knew the language, but it just wasn't easy, and I wanted my kids to know that people struggled before us, and that, you know, they should appreciate things that they have. So, and you know, and it's also really about what a father would do to sacrifice for his family, and I think that's a beautiful story too.
And it could be required reading for middle school or high school.
I agree.
There's no heavy-duty sex.
And no
swear words.
not heavy. Yeah.
Other than the actual war, you don't shoot anybody.
Right. That's good. I mean, the war was pretty brutal.
It's never going to sell.
Right.
But I think I saw something yesterday about a publishing company that's just decided that that's all they're going to print. They're not coming out with swear words or violence.
There's a couple swear words in the beginning. I don't know if you remember, but that's okay. But you know what?
They're
Because
probably an Irish and
right, and they
Gaelic.
sound right. No, and they sound so nice that that it doesn't really seem like a swear.
No.
But and you know what? They really didn't swear like we do today. Anyway, I found out it's more like they would use a religious term. Would be the worst thing you could possibly say, like "God damn you to hell." That would be like the worst thing you could say. Not, I guess the other swears came a little later. I found out that from the historian.
After they got Americanized, probably.
Probably. Thank you.
Well, I hope you enjoy Ireland.
Thank you.
And I hope you get to go around. Where was he actually buried? Did you ever find out?
Well, no. We're not exactly even sure if his body actually came back, but in West Springfield, someone has made a memorial for him, which is really cool.
Well, let me give you a gift.
Yes.
There's a lady in Billerica, Massachusetts, who lost her northern son in the South, and his body was never returned. And she got a letter from a woman down there who lost her son in the North.
Right.
She will forever decorate her son's grave on Memorial Day. And this lady will forever decorate the graves of Southern soldiers here.
Oh, that is.
When she passed, she left enough money that her grandson has now taken over, and he continues to decorate.
Oh, I think that's
Isn't
beautiful.
that cool?
Yeah, and a couple Memorial Days, my daughter and I, we went and we found his, and we, go decorate that too and just say thank you, and that's part of my presentation. But yeah, the fact that this book has, given me so many opportunities, it is amazing too. Irish festivals and different talks that I've gone.
We're going to give you a 30-second break to catch your breath, and then you're going to read a passage so everybody knows how enjoyable it is. We'll be right back.
So I'm going to read an excerpt from my book. This is from the actual letters that I found in my attic. It's from my great-great-grandfather, and he's in Virginia in March, and he's writing to his wife and children. Florence Burke, March the 4th, 1864, camp of the 37th Regiment. My dear wife and children, in earnest I have commenced the life of a soldier. The day after I sent my last letter, we were ordered to pack for a march. Some of the boys here are pleased that we're drawing closer to the battlefields, but I am not. I've been accustomed to the daily routine of training, marching, cleaning, cooking, and parading, but now it seems we're to put these skills to the test. On my arrival to camp, I found a letter from you containing your well-known features and that of the children. Mingled tears of joy and sadness welled up to my eyes. Joy at seeing through the medium of a picture the features of those I hold so near and dear to my heart, but sadness to think they were not true nature itself, that they might speak to cheer my drooping spirits. But thanks be to God, the sight of them, though mute, shall ever be a beacon to urge me on to duty. We left camp about 8 o'clock Saturday morning, each of us fully equipped with 40 rounds of cartridge, a haversack filled with hardtack, pork and coffee, a canteen of water, and a knapsack filled with clothing, a load for a horse. We were forced to march, quick time, 18 miles to a place called James City, where we bivouacked at night in an open lot. It was there that I slept under the stars, wondering if you or the boys were looking up at the same brilliant sky.
Way cool. That makes it so much more real and adds so much validity and personality to it. You can almost picture yourself there.
Yeah.
And doing it. Faithfully Yours, Yours Faithfully is the name of the book. This marvelous author
Thank you.
is Ellen B. Alden. I would suggest it for middle school, high school, an Irish grandfather, grandmother. They would, because they don't think we care about where they came from. Thank you for bringing it to the public and doing such a good job.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming to see us. That's it for Off the Shelf Books on Tour. See you next time. Bye.